I have just a few slides to show. They are kind of an outline of what I will be demoing after the slides are through. So here we show the setup of an Odbc connection, which is an open database connectivity connection, and this is one of the ways you can connect to Crystal reports. And we'll show this in more detail when I get to the demo part, but basically you need to set up a system DSN and configure it with your server name and host name and your port number and the user ID. Once you have that set up, you can test your connection by pressing the Test Connect button, and it should say whether the connection succeeded or failed. Then when you have that done, you can open Crystal reports and use your Odbc connection to connect to your Epicor database. And we'll show that also in more detail in the demo. So some of the topics that we're going to discuss are linking tables. That's the most important item for your report to work as you expect. Then also grouping, summing, multiple detail sections, formulas, running totals, parameters, special fields, filters, fonts, moving fields around on your report, and exporting your report. First of all, the Odbc connection. So we go to Administrative Tools, Data Sources Odbc, and we want to click on the System DSN tab. And here we already have our Odbc set up to connect to our test database, and if we click on Configure with the database highlighted, we can see the options set up for our server name, our host name, the description, the port number, and the user ID, etc. We also want to make sure and choose on the Advanced tab, choose Read Uncommitted, and then click OK, or we can test the connection by putting in the password for sysprogress. And it shows the connection is established, so that's good. That means we are talking to our database with our Odbc. So now we'll open Crystal reports. First of all, we're going to talk about linking our tables. That's the most important thing. So we'll go to Database Expert, and in here we can see where we'll use our Odbc connection. You can go to Create a New Connection and click on Odbc, and that will bring up our data source name that we created. If you had more than one, it would show in here that you can connect to, and then get all your tables, etc. We're going to cancel right now since we already have a current connection. It shows my connections, which is to that database, and if we enter the password, we will get all the tables again. And you can see all of our tables that we can read only. But we've already picked 3 tables: the order detail, order head, and order release. And we have them ready for this report. We want to show on the links tab. Here is where you make the links to your tables between your tables. So there are basically 4 different kinds of links, and it's very important that you make the correct link so that you get the data that you expect. There is what they call an inner link, which has both tables with an exact match between the 2 tables, so the order number will exist in the order head and the order detail. Or there's a left outer where both tables are an exact match, but it also includes every record in the primary table, which would be the left table, or the order header table. There's also the not equal link, which links values in the tables that are linked where they do not match. And then there's full outer, which links all records in both tables where there is an exact match, and also a row for every record in the left table where there's no match, and a row in the right table where there's no match. So to verify that you have your links correct, what you want to do is verify against your Epicor database to view some order information in this example to verify that you're getting the results that you expect to get. Make sure that you don't have duplicates and that you are getting all the records you expect. So once we have our links established and we're happy with them, we can say OK here, and then we can get started with designing the actual report. You can go to View and Field Explorer to have the Field Explorer come up here on the right hand side, and this will show the tables that we were just looking at that we have available for use on the report. So next we're going to talk about grouping. Since we only have one field so far on the report, we're going to need to bring a few more fields onto the report so that we can start with a group. So we have the order num already from the order header table, and we're going to add the order line, the order release number, and then our requested quantity. So if we preview at this point, we'll see we just have all of the records with all the lines and all the releases that exist in our training database with each of the quantities for each release. If we switch back to design view, we can now add grouping. So in order to add a group, you can go to Report, Group Expert, and here you have available all the fields that already exist on the report, those 4 fields that we just dragged onto the report, and then you also have available all the rest of the fields that exist in the tables that we have available to us. We're going to just group by order num, which is already a field on the report, so we're going to move it over to the right hand side, and that will be our grouping. And notice that now your Crystal report shows a separate section for a group header and a group footer. Most of the time I like to have my information below the group data, so I'll drag it down to the group footer and just drag up the section for the group header so that there's no wasted space. I'll also make the group name just as wide as the order number. Now we would expect to just have our list of orders, lines, and releases and required quantity again, and then a group footer that would show the order number when the order changes. But that's not very helpful, so we're going to move on to summing so that we can have a demo of both a sum and the results when you insert a summary in your group. What you need to do is select a field that has basically a quantity if you're going to sum, and you go insert summary, and then it has that field selected and the summary type, and you can choose to have the summary location be at the report footer only or at any of the groups you have created. You can select from the drop down box, or if you want to make sure that you add it to all your group levels, you can just click here and it would add it to all your group levels. You also have the option not just to sum, but to use average, count, minimum, maximum. All these different functions are available in the insert summary option. If we click OK, we'll see it put the summary at the group footer level and at the report footer level. So now if we preview, we can see easily that we have our detail information shown with the D here, and then our group footer information, which groups by the order number and the total summary of our requested quantity. We'll go back to design view and talk about multiple detail sections next. So you might want to insert multiple detail sections if you find that you need more space on your report than you have room to go across. That's most often. Or if you want something to stand out as a separate area in your details section. So the easiest way to do that is to go to Report Section Expert and click on the Details section, and then you just click Insert, and it will insert a new section below the current details section. So you have details A and details B now. And in order to demonstrate something there, we'll just put open release under the release number, so we can see whether this release is open or not. So if we preview again, here we can see that for each detail record there's a detail A and a detail B, and the detail A has order line release and the quantity, and then detail B just has whether the order release is an open release or not. Next, we'll demonstrate developing a formula for your report. So you can collapse all your fields so that you can more easily see the formula editor, and you click on formula fields, and then you can right click and say you want a new formula, and you can call your formula anything that you'd like. In this case, we'll just call it extension, and we're going to multiply the required quantity times the price to get the extension. So again, you have available to you all your report fields plus all your fields that are available in each of the tables. So we know the required quantity is on our report field. Okay, Kevin, why can't I see this? Oh, there it is. So ignore that part. So we select our required quantity field, and we are going to multiply, and then we're going to pick our price from the detail, the order detail table. And so we have our required quantity times our unit price. That should give us the extension. So you can choose to either save or save and close. Save would be if you want to create more formulas. You can do it. You can stay in the formula window. Otherwise, you can save and close to go back to your designing. So just like any other field, we can drag it onto our report. We want to do it at the details level because it's per release that we're using the extension. We're going to actually move it over a little so that we can actually show the unit price also, so that you can see that it looks like it's correct. If you add in the unit price and you take the hour required quantity times the unit price, you should get the extension. So we'll preview that, and we can see 2,000 times 18 1/4 is 36,500. That sounds right. And if we notice any fields that don't quite fit, they'll have these number hash signs. So we can go ahead and just make the field a little wider, and then it should all fit in there. So next we're going to talk about parameters. Just like the formulas, you can right click on the parameter fields and say you want to add a new parameter. We're going to start with using a start date. And we're going to change this to be a date. And then we can say OK. So that just gives us the ability to use the start date as a prompt. We'll use that next in conjunction with filters, so that we can say we want to see any orders with an order date greater than our start date. So we find the order date on the order header. And we want to say it's greater than or equal to, and here we'll have a drop down list of all the available values that Crystal will show you. It depends on your database, it might show all of them or it will show unlimited number of them. But at the beginning here it will show any parameters that we have available. In our case, the start date is the parameter we want to choose, so we want to see any orders with us that are greater than or equal to the start date that we enter, and we'll click OK. So now if we print preview, it will ask you to enter a start date. You can type it in using this format, month, date, year, or you can click the little calendar button and choose a date for your selection. And when you say OK, it immediately shows you all your data with any orders that are greater than your start date. Just to show the values of our start date, we'll just add them into our report here also. So you can see our start dates were in 2007. Special fields. It's another section on your Field Explorer that will have built-in data fields. For example, the current date, the current time, the author, the page numbers, the total page count. Often you might want to use the page N of M, which will show which page number you're on out of the total pages. And you can just drag it and drop it into the report also. Notice I did that on the preview, or you could do it in the design. On the preview, you need to look for the page footer section to drop it in the page footer. You can drag and drop any of these on any fields on the preview display. However, if you do it on the design display, you have more control and more easily can identify where you want to drop your fields. So we already talked about filters a little bit for the start date, but we're going to look a little closer here to see that with filters you can do more than one filter. Here it shows this filter, but if you click the new tab, you can do another filter based on another field in your reports, or you can also use the formula editor, which will show the formula down here once you're done. If you click on the formula editor, it brings you in just like you were doing a regular formula for the report, and you can add to your filter selection by putting in fields and or parameters, etc., to narrow down your values even further. Okay, now we were going to talk about fonts. Basically, you can choose all of your fields that you want to change a font. You can do that by selecting one and pressing Control to select another, continuing that way. Or you can draw a box around the fields that you want, and that will select them all. Or the third option is to right click in the section that you want and then say select all section objects, and that's the easiest way to select all of them in any one section. And then you can just click the drop down box to choose a different font and choose a different size if you want, bold, etc. When you do that, of course, you'll have to make sure that they still fit in the boxes or make your boxes bigger. We're just going to revert back so that our boxes all fit as they should without us having to manually change them. So in addition to changing your fonts, you can also move your fields using the same options of using Control to select each one, or drawing a box around each one, or again choosing right clicking in your section expert and choosing select all section objects. And you can either drag your fields to the right or left or up or down, or you can use the arrow keys to move them all at once or move them all back at once. And then the final topic we were going to talk about today is exporting your file. So the best advice to export your file is to make sure that all your columns line up so that there's they're all the same width for the fields. And to do that, you can go to Format, Make Same Size, and say the width. And I would also say align the lefts. And repeat that for each of your fields to make sure that they line up. Mostly if your top field is wide enough to accommodate any of them below, and those below don't extend beyond either the left or the right of your column header, it should export correctly also. So in this case, our required quantity is not aligned correctly, so we'll go ahead and format them to make them the same size, the width, and format. And this time I think I want to align the rights so they line up better. We need to move our extensions so they line up. And our order date. So now we should be able to go to File and export the report and choose from the drop down. Most people want to export to Excel, and most people want the data only. Don't really want the summing of the required quantity because you can do that already in Excel. So we say OK, and you want to choose the typical option so that this should be the same as what you see when users export from Crystal reports within Epicor, and it should get all the default settings, and if your default settings work here, it should be the same to work in Epicor. And so then you say OK, and it'll ask you where you want to, it'll show you where it's going to export it, or you can change that path, and you can call it whatever you want to call it, and notice it's a .xls, and then you can save. So that's basically the end of our demo for Crystal Reports and our Lunch and Learn for today. I hope you enjoyed it.